Watch and
learn. Okay, so, oh, fuck. Okay, hey, everyone, anyone. Tonight, I will be discussing the 1983 anthology-based horror film known as Nightmares, starring Emilio Estevez and Veronica Cartwright. And I'm leaving. He's in this too. And like I said, this is an anthology. It's 4 stories. The first of which I will be discussing immediately, and that is Terror in Topanga. Tells the story of a husband and wife who are at home when the wife discovers that she is out of cigarettes, which anybody who's ever smoked, we can all relate to that. And she is suddenly feeling compelled to hop in the car, go drive a ways out, because they live sort of in the hills, sort of like in a more of a country-based suburb, I suppose. And all the while, there's some escaped lunatic who, of course, broke free from the asylum for the criminally insane, and he's running around and he's slaughtered 5 people so far. And of course, along the way, she ends up picking up the killer, who's played, of course, by Lee Ving from Fear, the band. And of course, she doesn't know this. He's in the backseat. She stops off to get some gas, and it's at that point that the sort of Tales from the Crypt, sort of the Vault of Horror thing takes over. And the gas station attendant, he notices that the guy's in the back seat. So he's like, "Miss, we need you to come into the store. There's a problem with your credit card, yada, yada, yada." Except this time, see, originally that story goes that the guy usually disappears and he's just gone from the back seat. But in this, the gas station attendant ends up blowing him away, pumps him full of holes. And I think my favorite part about this story had to be the fact that Lee Ving from the band Fear, whose music is used heavily in the second story with Emilio Estevez called The Bishop of Battle, he plays the lunatic. So I thought that was a nice touch. But all in all, I don't love this first story. This trope has been kind of done to death. I love it. It's like, you can tell that the people that clean Food Basics at night, they have a really good relationship with each other, because they're driving away together. I don't think they're dating or anything either. They're just messing around, and you can clearly tell that they all like each other. There's a handful of them there. So yeah, I don't think they're all dating, that's for sure. But that has nothing to do with this. I just like looking over and seeing people having as much fun as that, because they could be killing each other or something, right? So the second story now is The Bishop of Battle with Emilio Estevez, and this, next to The Benediction, which is about the satanic truck chasing down the priest in the next story, this is my favorite, and I think overall that this is everybody's favorite story. This seems to be the one that everybody champions whenever they discuss this film, which, of course, as time rolls on, is less and less, of course. But whenever anybody does, they always seem to remember The Bishop of Battle. And what this one is about is a video game addicted teenager, played incredibly well by Emilio Estevez. He is hooked on this game that is known as the Bishop of Battle. There's only 12 levels, but there is rumored to be a mythical 13th level. Apparently some kid in New Jersey got to it twice. And so Emilio Estevez spends his days cutting school and hustling people in order to generate funds so that he can go back to the mall, so that he can continue to try to get to the ever elusive level 13 on the Bishop of Battle. My favorite thing about this story overall is just the use of Black Flag and X. Black Flag, I believe, is their music. Black Flag's used, I'm pretty sure X is used too, as well as Fear, who the vocalist from Fear, Lee Ving, he played the bad guy in the first story, Terror in Topanga. And at this point, punk rock was sort of the music that all the kids were listening to, riding on the rock and everything, and everybody was everywhere going, "Oh, Black Flag," "Oh shit, the Circle Jerks," for 10 minutes. Everyone loved the Germs. And so that was another thing that I loved about this. But I think my favorite part is the use of technology, and how when this movie, no doubt, came out in 1983, when you see the graphics, when you see the bishop come to life at the end and he sort of takes over Emilio Estevez and fires him inside of the game, and Emilio has to shoot around the arcade firing at this CGI, essentially. and it is CGI. What am I saying? Essentially, it is CGI. And whereas, of course, in 2023, it now looks incredibly dated, it actually, all in all, doesn't look that bad. I do like how the message here is that video games are sort of all-consuming. They're as addictive as anything else, and how this game completely destroyed Emilio Estevez's character's life. So the next story, story 3, is The Benediction. And this is starring Lance Henriksen. He plays a priest who has recently lost his faith, and he decides to leave his tiny parish in the middle of one part of the desert, and he decides to set off in his vehicle throughout the rest of the desert in order to start a new life free of God and faith. And he's just going to sort of live his life like a regular dude, except a little while after he leaves, he starts to become hunted by this cool-looking but intimidating black pickup truck that has an inverted cross hanging in the rear view mirror. So you know that this vehicle is sent from Satan in order to fuck with this dude who's recently lost his faith. Now, throughout the course of this story, of course, like I said, he is hunted and he is practically killed. This vehicle does whatever it wants. It comes from the ground, and nothing he can do ever seems to put a dent in its ability to be stopped. So it always got me wondering too, like, I wasn't 100% sure if this vehicle was actually satanic, like if this was a demonic pickup truck, or if this vehicle was sent by God in order for Lance Henriksen's character to rediscover his faith. And usually, as I understand it, when somebody rediscovers their faith, it comes back stronger. And it seems like they have a much better relationship with God from that point forward. So the story concludes with Henriksen surviving, and they're like, oh, good, you know, he's a little messed up, of course, because of what happened to him. And the paramedics are going to take him to the one hospital that's further away from where his parish was. And of course, he informs them, he says, no, take me back to the other one, because that's where my parish is, and that's where my congregation is, and that's where I'm needed, which of course totally tells us that he has rekindled his faith, found his love in God again. And so again, I'm not exactly sure if whether or not this vehicle was satanic or if this vehicle was godly. Never really been 100% about that one. The final story is Night of the Rat. This is the one that's starring Veronica Cartwright. And I think the whole purpose of this story is to have this rather large... Who the fuck is smoking cigarettes? Okay, somebody is smoking and there's no one around me. I can smell cigarette smoke. Well, anyways, doesn't matter. Yeah, and I think the whole purpose of this story was just to see how horrible of a character somebody could write to play the husband. Because the guy's a fucking asshole, and he's so full of himself, and he's that sort of typical 1970s, 1980s sort of career first, family second husband who thinks that everything he does makes him a hero, and everything like the little woman says is kind of stupid, and he's always sort of humoring her. And of course, Veronica Cartwright and their daughter, they both begin to very quickly realize that there's something going on in this house that's not quite right. And it turns out to be this massive rat that is looking for some revenge by way of, if I'm not mistaken, killing their daughter because they had set up some rat traps at the beginning to, you know, deal with what they thought were normal-sized rats. And in the process, they killed one of the normal-sized rats who were one of this giant rat's children. So like I said, it comes for revenge. This story is really dumb. The husband is an asshole. The blown up rat, they took a normal sized rat, of course, and they blew it up like 100 times its size. And so it's sitting in the bedroom with them. And this is so clearly 1983 at this point. Like the green screening is so bad. And you can tell that the rat is really timid and really polite. And they're attempting to make it as terrifying as they can, but it's not working. And then the rat screams, takes the dead baby out of the room, the husband cries, and through that we're led to believe that he's going to be a better spouse and a better father. And the movie concludes, and it ends with the daughter saying, but where's the rat gonna go to next? Like, it's supposed to be some sort of threat. But I think the only way that this rat would ever become a threat again is if somebody were to endanger one of its offspring, like this family did in the final story. Story was dumb. I love Veronica Cartwright. She's always great. The daughter wasn't the best actor. The husband was an asshole. But that, again, was kind of the point. And so really, out of these 4 stories, the Bishop of Battle, the second story, the Bishop of Battle, as well as the Benediction, which was the third story about the priest, they were the best. The first and fourth stories, Terror and Topanga and Night of the Rat, they're just kind of there. The blown up rat, the exaggerated size of the rather timid rat was adorable, but the word adorable in relation to a horror movie should never really be used. So yeah, so I am going to go. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for a ton of time while I discussed the 1983 film Nightmares. Like always, if you like this review or whatever the hell this was, don't forget to do something nice for somebody. But please, most importantly, do not forget that the world is a better place because you are in it. I'm going to go. Have a good night.